Okay, so we're gonna learn how to make a very simple set of pot holders. You can do this for Christmas gifts or parties or favors for showers. What I'm doing today is using this quarter. It's a fat quarter. I bought it online. I think it was on eBay. And my sister has this thing about sleds, like what's on your sled. So it's all the things she has to do. Okay, so what I did is I washed it and I dried it in hot water and a hot dryer. So when she makes food and spills something on the pot holder and has to wash it, she won't have to worry if it's going to shrink or bleed or not turn out right. So I prepared the fabric, and it was wrinkly, of course, so we take our Oliso iron and we press it really well. And this iron has little feet on it, so when you let go it raises itself up so there won't be anything getting scorched, and you don't have to keep wasting time putting your iron up. You can just kind of iron, slide it off, and then iron some more. Okay. It's a great iron. It has steam, and you can give it bursts of water or puffs of steam. And all of those are good, but you also need heat, which it has a lot of nice heat, and you need downward pressure, so you've got to do some of the work. Okay, so we are now going to measure how big of a piece of material we have here. I like to do whatever I can to not waste too much material. So if there's enough waste that I can make quilt patches out of it, that's fine, or rag rugs, because I take little strips, 1 to 2 inches wide, and weave them into rugs. So we're real green here. So rather than say, well, I need an 80-inch pot holder, what I'm going to do is see how wide it is, which it's 18 inches, and see how long it is. And just to go to the selvage, because we don't want to include that, so it's 21.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is, since it's 18 inches wide, I'm just going to fold it in half and cut it down. So we will start out with a 9-inch block. So I don't have any pattern or anything, but this is going to be square. Alright, so I'm just going to cut this down. I do like to rip my material, but in this case I only have this little piece, and if something goes wrong I don't want to lose it completely. Okay, so now we've got 9 inches wide, and we need 2. So I'm just going to trim this because we want it to be square. Okay, I'm going to go down this way, and everything's nice and even on both sides, so let's just measure 9 inches. 8.5. Okay, that's 9 right there, and then 9.25 here. So we're just going to pull it up a little bit. 9.25. Okay. Good. Okay, so we're just gonna cut this apart here at the fold, and if I hold on to it tightly and pull the scissors up, we'll get a nice straight edge. Now we've got one more piece to cut off here, and that's the extra. That'll go in a quilt, and we won't be wasting anything. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and put the batting in and sew around the edges and turn it and be finished with our pot holder. Okay, so now we have 4 pieces of the sled material, and we're going to put cotton batting. I only use cotton in things that might go in the microwave or in the oven. We don't want any polyester kind of stuff melting. Okay, these are cut way too big. They were from another project, so we're not going to waste them. And what I'm going to do is just quilt the top to the bottom with just an X. If you want, you can do swirls in here, stars. You can just decorate it any way you want. But I'm just doing a quick serviceable X. So I'm going to go from corner to corner. I'm not stretching or pulling. I'm kind of guiding it, but I'm not stretching it out of shape. I want it to stay square. I don't want anything bunching up underneath. This machine has a little cutter on it, so I don't have to cut anything, but that made a nice straight line, and it went through the back. So now we're going to do the other side, and sometimes you push material and it bunches into the center, so you want to just make sure you've got it smoothed out, and you're not going to pull it, you're just going to guide it. If you think you're going to get something pushed into there, start in the center and move out, and then go back in the center and move out. I'm just going to try from corner to corner and hope it works out right. You'll notice I didn't use any sprays, chemicals, glues, or anything to hold this fast to the batting. The batting has a little bit of a nap to it, like a little fuzzy to it, and it's holding on to the material just fine. I don't want to use anything that might ruin the environment, and I also have asthma, so we can't have sprays and scents and glues in the air. And it would be really great to do this really fast, but if you go slow, you will not have any mistakes. Okay, got that. Now I'm going to do this 3 more times to the other pieces, but I'm also going to trim this now down to the edge of the cloth. It's not like rocket science. If you can't get it straight, it won't matter. We're gonna sew these edges and turn these sides in anyway. But we just want to take some of the bulk off. I like to leave as much batting as possible out to the edges so that it gives us some insulation against the hot whatever we're going to use the pot holder on. So it doesn't, I don't think it pays to trim pot holders because you want them to have as much stuffing between you and the hot pan. Okay, so I'll be back in a minute when I've done the other 3. Okay, so we have trimmed the batting from around our 2 squares. And this is called the right side. This is the wrong side. And what we're going to do is put right sides together. So we're going to sew them together, and then when we turn them, they'll both come out on the right side. Now, you can pin this if you want, or put clips on it if you want to, but I just usually go around the edges and don't do that because sometimes the pins or clips will buckle it up, and I really want this to be flat. Okay, so we're going to sew about 1/4 of an inch, so my foot is about 1/4 of an inch, but I'll leave a little bit of the raggy stuff kind of hanging out to the edge, and I'm going to sew right to that stitching line, turn it there, and do the same all the way around, and that way I'll have about 1/4 of an inch and everything will be even. Okay, so when we put the needle down, what I'm going to do here at the beginning and the very end is do a little back stitch, so when we put some tension on the material to turn the pot holder, it won't rip and the stitches won't rip out. So we'll go a couple stitches and then we'll go back and then forward. And I'm just gonna let the feed dogs take the material in and get to about there. And I have the needle down position, and we turn it. Just want to go straight down here, this side. that stitching line, I put my needle down. Okay, and then with the needle down I can just spin this around and I don't have to worry about relining anything up. Okay. Right down on the line. And a little back stitch and forward. Needle up and then I trim it. Okay, now before you go any further, you want to go look at the other side and just, you know, if you didn't cut it perfectly, or, you know, not perfect ever, you just want to make sure that the material is caught in all of the seams, because once you turn this and top stitch, you don't want to find a mistake. Okay, so you just check all 4 edges, take the time to do it, and you'll save time in the end. Okay, so these are all caught, and there's plenty of material at each edge. I'm going to cut the corners close to the stitching like this, because when we turn the corner it'll get a big lumpy bump in there. You don't want to cut into the stitching, you just want to cut the corner off. See? One more. Okay. Now, if you happen to have taken a bigger seam allowance than this, you may want to trim it. On the other hand, if you leave it in there, it'll pad more for your pot holder. So, I would probably leave it. Okay, so now we're going to get your thumb into those corners and push them out. It's going to be the only time you really have a chance to turn it and get the corners out. So, once again, I try to go to every corner. And I pull the seam open, like as I'm opening it, because I'll show you that in a minute. But there's another corner. I want it to be nice and pointy. And if we would have left that corner in there without cutting it off, we wouldn't be able to get a nice sharp corner like that. Okay. So now there's another little trick here. You take your scissors carefully and put them inside and push out the corner a little bit more. You don't want to be so aggressive that you rip through the corner, but it will just give you a little bit more point, and that makes it look more professional. I'm not trying to make things look homemade. I'm trying to make them look like they came out of the store because, you know, that's what people will buy. Okay, so once it's turned like that, I just roll these edges and I put a clip on, just so that they stay and don't get kind of naturally fall back in. Then where we had the top, if you trim this too much, you won't have enough to tuck back in. So if I was going to trim around, I would leave this part that's open long. I would not trim that, because you need something for the stitching to grab a hold of. Now try to feel and make sure that the batting is also in that fold there. You don't want to have the batting stuffed down in, or it'll get all lumpy here. Okay, so sometimes there's a couple stitches that show here, and if they do, which I don't see any now, but if they do, I take my scissors and just kind of tuck the stitching and thread down in there. And I never used to use these clips, but I actually really like them. And I'll give you a link for where I get these. They're all over the place, but I'll give you some links where you can go if you have a favorite place to shop for fabric. There's some places that are better prices than others. Okay, now we're gonna stitch very close to the edge, maybe like 1/8 of an inch, but whatever we stitch, we're gonna keep it the same. And what I like to do is I don't like to start here where the opening is, because with washing that could kind of like maybe agitate and get loose. So I start on the other side and come up and around and straight down. That way there's not a stop and start point at this open edge. So we'll just see what looks right here. I think if I think I can keep my foot at a certain edge, I'll use whatever my mark is, you know, because there's a little line on the foot here. I don't know, probably can't see, but I can see that from here. So I'm just going to try to line it up and stick it there. And I also go front and back a little bit, just 1 or 2 stitches. And you got to remember that now you're going through sometimes 8 layers, so don't stress your needle out. Just take it slow. Get to the corner. Put the needle down. Alright, now this is where we got to make sure our fabrics get all tucked in and caught by the needle. Looks like we're doing just fine there, nice and straight. Same thing. Now when you get to the corner, it looks like you're too far off the edge, but actually if you go like 1 extra stitch where you think you're comfortable, that will actually be right, because it has to turn and accommodate this corner. Okay, 2 more sides. Put the needle up and clip it off. Now what this machine does is it shoves the threads down from the top and the bottom. So I don't know if you can see that, but they're down there at the bottom half. So we're going to just pick them up and tug on them a little and trim them close as we can. And when we first started out, there was a thread on top, so we're just going to go get that one. Just remember that every time you trim your stuff, it looks nicer. If you leave threads hanging, you know, people don't like that. So just clean it up and make sure it looks good. Now, there's a couple things you can do here. You can, you know, put an X here in the center, because they are actually 2 separate pieces, but these are stitched down so well that you really don't need to do that, and that helps give some flexibility to the paw holder. Okay, so we're going to get the other one done. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to roll out these edges so that the seams are up as tight as they can be. These corners I already pushed out with the scissors. I'm just going to roll it. It's amazing how much just a little bit of a roll will help that straighten out. My mom taught me this. We made a lot of stuffed animals when I was a kid. That's how I learned to sew. Okay, so now here we're going to fold these in and make sure there's stuffing in them. And oh, I thought that was a thread, but it was part of the design of the sled. Hey, that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm just going to clip these. Now here's some strings, but we should really just get rid of those. We don't need to tuck anything in there that doesn't belong. Okay. So this is the side that's open, so we'll start down on this side. I know that paw holders will get washed a lot, so I just want to make sure that the stitching is close and that I go back and forth so things don't loosen up in years of washing. Okay, I just have one more suggestion for you. If you happen to have an embroidery machine that has quilting design motifs, little stars or Dresden plates or just a kind of small design, you can actually forego this stitching on both sides and finish your pot holder off on the edges and put that into your hoop. But I used to like tape it into my hoop or put some of the tearaway stabilizer and then attach this to the stabilizer. And then I did like stars and things like that for Christmas presents. That made a really just different pot holder because not everybody has an embroidery machine, and it gives it an extra special touch. Okay, so there we have it. Now I'm just gonna suggest another thing. If you're making pot holders to sell, this is the easiest kind to do. You can also do things like put binding, bias binding on the edges. That makes them look very nice, but it takes a lot more time, and I have a binding foot, but it doesn't work for a square. It works if I'm doing a bib, you know, something that this just has to gently curve around. Once you start adding the time of putting this in, now that would have looked really sharp on there, okay? The binding would have been very cool. But if I'm making for my family or gift, that's one thing, but if I'm making these to sell, like, and try to get some kind of money out of, we can't compete with China, and so adding extra things to it, like binding, will add either to your price or just to your time that you put into it. Okay, so when you try to figure your cost for your pot holders, you don't want to be giving them away. Your time is valuable, and you have to take into consideration everything from the beginning, where you looked online or in a store. If you went physically to a store to get the material, that was time, gas, you know, and money basically. Same thing when you're sitting at your desk trying to sort out and like buy fabric online. It takes a lot of time, and you have to figure that into your total price. Then you have to pay shipping and the cost of the material. The next thing you do to it is you wash it and dry it. So you've used hot water and a hot dryer, probably a dryer sheet, and definitely some laundry detergent. All those things need to be figured into this project and the price, or you're going to be losing money and you'll just be making them for fun. And that's fine if you want to make them for fun. But if you want to try to get your materials and time back out of it, you know, got to figure that. Some people actually too also figure the power that their sewing machines, their iron took, the time it takes to wind a bobbin and thread your machine, to maintain your machine. All those things have to be kind of put into the price of your project. See this, well now how much would somebody pay for this? Well, if you think like $3, you know, sure, anybody would pay $3 for that, but the material cost $10. And, you know, how much time did I put into this, plus the batting? We forgot about the batting price. So you may actually make out better to put two pot holders together, like say on Amazon, for $29.99. I'm just saying, you don't want to give your stuff away, because you do have to turn some kind of a profit. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this, and I guess we'll get ready to give these to somebody you all know and love. It's Kathy Otterson. She has a great cooking show on YouTube, and look for these in one of her next videos. Have a nice day. Be kind to everyone. Take it easy on each other, and give each other lots of love and support. Have a razzle-dazzle day.